Welcome to Health, Wellbeing and Lifestyle, where professionals in the field inform, educate and inspire the community to be healthier, more balanced and live the lifestyle they love. And today we have Sarah Kiryshin in the studio, who is a barbecue cook and healthy food advocate. Welcome, Sarah. What have you got for us today?
So I am an absolute barbecue fanatic. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my fundamental rules when it comes to barbecuing, okay? So for me, I am a very, very busy person. I live quite an active lifestyle and I love food. Number one, the food must always be delicious. But for me, barbecuing makes it more delicious. There's that incredible flavour that you cannot describe that comes from a barbecue, especially when you cook over charcoal. The other thing is it has to be simple. And of course, quick. That was the other point as well. So delicious, simple and quick. They are my three fundamentals to cooking on the barbecue.
Do you want to talk about what you've got here?
Absolutely. So this is actually quite a special dish. When it comes to my beautiful snapper here, all I do is I pop as many herbs as I possibly can inside because as it cooks, they're going to infuse the flesh from the inside out. So herbs and lemon, it's kind of that simple. And then on the outside, I usually make a few incisions in the fish. And in this particular one, I've just got some fennel and lemon. And that's it. Again, that beautiful, gentle aniseed flavour of the fennel and the lemon complements the fish so beautifully, and it keeps it really, really light and fresh, and that's what we want, especially when we're having a delicious fish like this. And then really, it's as simple as just making sure the barbecue is hot enough. That's essential because the last thing you want is the fish sticking to it. And then you just pop it on there. So what I love to serve my fish with is some sweet potatoes and of course complementing that with some grilled fennel as well, because that's already in the fish and I just feel like it kind of ties it all in together. So call it a kind of quick, easy, healthy take on fish and chips. When it comes to cooking a delicious dish on the barbecue, there's three kind of core steps. So obviously selecting the food that you plan on cooking. Number two is, of course, cooking the amazing food. And number three, which is certainly most people's favourite, which is actually consuming it and serving it up. So when we're talking about selection of the ingredients that you're going to be cooking with, for me, especially when selecting a fish, ideally you do have a fish shop or a fishmonger that you can trust and ask a few questions about the freshness of it, where it comes from. So this is a snapper. When I look at a snapper, I think, okay, we always want the eyes to be quite clear and bright. If they're cloudy, it means it's probably been sitting there a little while. When it comes to the skin, you want it to be quite smooth and glossy, but not slimy. So they're kind of the two key tips to look for when selecting a fish: bright eyes and smooth skin. The next thing is, so fennel, for example, most greengrocers will have beautiful fresh fennel. One of my favourite things when selecting fennel is to make sure that the bulb is quite large. The next step is, of course, cooking it. So what we do is we stuff the fish, we put all of our beautiful herbs, maybe some fennel fronds in there. We will slice the lemon and fennel quite thin. So if you have a mandolin, it's a lot easier to shave the fennel down. And then you'll pop a few incisions in the flesh. You want to get quite low down so that you can get as much flesh as you can. Cut a few slices in there, and that's when you'll pop a couple of slices of lemon and a few pieces of shaved fennel in there as well. It can be tricky. I know a lot of people might find it a little bit daunting to cook a fish on the barbecue because the first thing you think is the skin's probably going to stick to the barbecue. So I've got a few tips to remedy that. But what I would always suggest is to make sure the barbecue is extra hot. So when you put it on, it kind of sears and seals the skin as you pop it on the barbecue. The next one is to oil. Oil the skin as much as you can. Obviously, we want to make sure that we have a balance between consuming too much oil and making sure the dish is still nice and healthy, but also making sure the fish doesn't stick. keep in mind a lot of that oil will cook off in the cooking process. A lot of the amazing juices will drip down into the charcoal and then they will re-infuse the food, which makes it even more delicious. And then with the sweet potato chips, they're so simple. You just slice them up, pop them on the barbecue, a little bit of oil, a little bit of salt, maybe some herbs if you like. They take probably about 5 minutes either side, whereas the fish will take about 10 minutes either side. I like to try and keep it off super direct heat because we want it to cook all the way through. And then when you flip it, we obviously want to make sure that we've got a similar cooking time on the other side to make sure that fish is cooked perfectly. When it comes to flipping the fish, we don't want to move it around too much, otherwise that skin will slide off the fish. So usually I just get a big spatula. I also get some tongs to pop on the fish to maybe secure it a little bit. And you just slide the spatula under there and use your tongs just to gently flip it.
Sarah, I'd love to hear your top barbecue tips.
All right, there are quite a few. I will summarise it for this dish. So when it comes to barbecuing, one thing to remember is it's not as prohibitive as it may seem. It can actually be quite quick and easy. And for the value for money in terms of, and the return on investment, the flavour, and also just that active process of cooking something outside is well worth the short and quite simple investment of time. So I like to cook over charcoal. The flavour is so much better, the heat distribution is phenomenal, and the way that it holds its heat for such a long time is really valuable to me when I'm cooking on the barbecue. The next step is to make sure that you use I prefer to use a natural fire lighter. The last thing you want is to taint the taste of the food that you're going to be cooking on the barbecue. So always opt for a natural fire lighter. So the next step, what I did with this snapper is I used some oak smoking chunks. So just before I pop the food on the barbecue, I pop a few smoking chunks among the charcoal, and then what you've got is this additional flavour explosion, and it's just smoking up that food and it's infusing it with so much flavour.
Thank you so much for sharing those really handy tips. If you want to learn more about Sarah and barbecue cooking and how to cook this incredible snapper, go to Sarah's webpage on our website at healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. Now stay tuned because after the break we've got another guest and we'll be discussing another interesting topic.
Stay tuned. After the break, Sue Williams, Doctor of Quantum Counselling and Clinical Hypnotherapist, will be talking about could epigenetics be the key for athletes, people in business and everyone to health and success? Welcome back. Our next guest, Sue Williams, is a Doctor of Quantum Counselling and a Clinical Hypnotherapist, and the topic we'll be discussing is can epigenetics be the key for peak performance in athletics, business and our everyday lives? Welcome, Sue.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Sue, may you explain a little bit more about epigenetics?
It's becoming a little bit more well known, but a lot of people have never heard of it. So it is based on your genes, like you have a genetic sequence in your DNA. But we have the epigenetic, which is actually something that we can change. It's all to do with switching on and off the genes in our DNA sequence. So the DNA itself doesn't change. The actual genes that are on the DNA strand are the same, but we can turn them on and off. Unconsciously, it can happen to us by our environment, by our thoughts, because our thoughts control our physical being. If we live in a very built-up area and we're breathing in car fumes all day, if we're near factories, we're breathing in the toxins from the factories. Of course, there are regulations now so that these things aren't as bad as they used to be. They tend to build up over time, which is a problem. That affects our genetic makeup a lot. And the great thing about epigenetics is that we can change that genes, whether they're turned on or off, which affects our health, our well-being, our reality. So it's a very interesting field, and if people are keen to find a bit more, you'll get a lot if you just Google epigenetics. It's an up-and-coming science with a lot of research going on.
Why is it the key to our health and success?
It's because we are in control. We don't have to be seeking outside assistance. We can start with ourselves. We can do the things that are going to improve our wellness. And that can start with our diet. If we choose organic produce rather than produce that's potentially been sprayed with pesticides and even growth hormones, that type of thing. If we can go back to as natural a diet as possible, and that doesn't mean excluding meat, because you can get responsibly sourced protein in a number of ways, including meat. You just have to look for it a bit harder. But we can do that. That's such an easy way to do it. Unfortunately, it is a bit more expensive because it's not mass produced. But not mass produced can often indicate that it's going to be a lot better for us because it's done in smaller batches with more care. So that's one easy way. Another way is to remove heavy metals from our system, because they can have a real impact on the way our cells operate. They interrupt the natural flow, the natural development of our cells. And if we look back into earlier times when a lot of the older houses had lead paint, we know the damage that was done to young kids who were exposed to lead and the mercury in the fish. So this isn't new. This is something that's been happening for a long time, and research has been done into it. But now we're fortunate that we can purchase the heavy metal test kits. And once you've found out what the heavy metals are in your body, you can use natural substances like zeolite, and there are plenty of supplements out there that you can purchase, and rid yourself of these toxins. So that's a really good step forward. Drinking purified water, because these days there's so many impurities in our tap water. I would say don't turn to plastic single-use bottles, but buy a processing machine for your house. Even those bottles and jugs that purify the water, they're going to be so much better than you drinking the straight tap water, and a lot kinder on the environment than relying on plastic bottles. But this is all proactive stuff that we can do for ourselves. And by improving the way we live, then we improve the way our genetics work as well.
That's really interesting, Sue. Do you have any advice for our viewers going forward?
Yes, and the amazing thing is that when we're dealing with epigenetics, we can do it all ourselves. We can change our diet so that it's a better diet, less processed, and it's all this sort of thing is in line with what we do to try and stay healthy anyway. But if you do the testing to get rid of the heavy metals, improve your diet, improve your exercise, because that will improve your whole body well-being. So, and by doing that without even realising it, we're improving the way our genetic code works. And we can overcome these diseases that are passed down from generation to generation, like cancer, type 2 diabetes, heart disease. You'll see families that you've got generation after generation that have had this problem. It's caused by which of the genes is switched on and off. Improve your lifestyle, improve your health, and you have every opportunity of changing that, and you'll be the one that stops it. And if you're young enough, you'll be able to pass on this new genetic code, the way it's switched on and off, to your kids. And that's the amazing thing, that you can be the person who's making the change for the people in your family your downline, if we can call it that. But again, there are plenty of experts out there. If you need help at all with changing your diet, with changing your exercise regime, just look for experts in particular fields and get them to start helping you. And then once you are on that track, your body feels so much better that you really just want to keep doing it. You can break out every now and then, because if it's a very strictly regimented life that you lead, then you're probably not going to be as joyful as you want to be. So you can still include those naughty things every now and then. You can have a glass of wine. You know, you can have that chocolate if you really need to. But it's looking at the big picture. How do I live my life? I try and avoid the toxins. I try and have a good diet. I keep the exercise going. And that's more important as you get older. Just keep that exercise as much as you can. And you'll be the creator of your destiny and the destiny of your kids and your grandkids.
Thanks, Sue. That's such valuable information to follow. If you'd like to know more about Sue Williams and the effects of epigenetics in peak performance in business, athletics and everyday life and success, please go to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And after the break, we'll have another interesting guest with another interesting topic. Stay tuned. After the break, urban food specialist Marc Noyce will be talking about how to create your own urban edible garden. Welcome back. Our next guest is urban food specialist Marc Noyce, and the topic we're here to discuss today is how to create your own edible garden. Welcome, Marc.
Hi Megan, thanks for having me.
So Marc, what are some of the challenges we face in creating our own edible garden?
I grew up on a market garden myself, and I had broadacre farming. I had all the farming tools associated with a big urban farm. And it took a lot of work. But I tell you, when you get into our urban environment where there's a concrete jungle, it's that much harder again to grow your own food at home. So some of the challenges are having the right space, having the right aspects so that you get the right light onto your plants, because, you know, let's face it, some plants need a lot more light than others. Lettuce might only need 4 to 5 hours a day, whereas tomatoes and some other sun-loving plants need up to 10 hours a day of sunlight, so they need to be in full sun. So that's a challenge, getting the light and the aspect right, getting your nutrition right for your plants, getting the right nutrients in there, getting a high-quality compost or a high-quality potting mix. That's very important as well, to keep that nutrition up to feed the plants. We all like to get fed well, so do our plants, and they need to get fed well too, to get the best out of them. Another very important thing to remember is having access to water. Plants like water access all the time. If a plant doesn't get, and especially vegetables, if a plant doesn't get what they need in terms of water access, they go, I'm not going to be around here much longer, so I'm going to go to seed. I'm going to fulfill my life's mission, and I'm going to just go to seed. And we call that bolting. When a vegetable doesn't like its water environment, it gets too stressed, it releases a little hormone that says, hey, go to seed. So getting that water right for your plants, you can either be out there watering all day, you can be out there watering morning, noon and night just to keep that optimal water up to your plants, or you can set your garden up much easier with wicking garden beds, for example.
Marc, what are the benefits of having an edible garden?
The benefits are just enormous in terms of your mental health, in terms of your physical nutrition, in terms of your connecting with your friends and family and your community. So let's have a look at those aspects of an urban edible garden. I love going out to my own garden and knowing where my food comes from, looking at these plants and watching them grow and being part of that, and then understanding exactly what I put into those plants so that I know that I'm getting really fresh, organic produce that is just tasty and nutritious and just fantastic to eat. The benefits also getting involved in knowing where your food comes from, and also communicating with your friends and family that maybe you haven't seen for a while. So let's grow some beetroots. Grow some beetroots and then make some beetroot relish, and in a very small place you can grow 3 kilos of beetroot in 2 months in half a square metre, make a relish that can go to 5 or 6 people in your family, and your friends will love you. And not only that, you're getting so much satisfaction out of growing your own food. You're getting a lot of satisfaction about getting in contact with people that you might not have seen for a while, and you're starting that conversation again. You're increasing your mental health, you're helping others, and then you can give back something to your community as well. On a broader scale, you can grow food for your neighbours, you can get people involved into a community garden, and you can just have an enormous uplifting of self-confidence and community confidence about closing your nutrient loops, reusing water for food, and I'm just rambling on, I shouldn't have said that.
Marc, can I grow the same plant over and over again?
Well, you can, but if you don't do certain things to keep ensuring that the potting mix is fresh, if you don't remove the biomass that's, the root systems, the stem of the plant, for example, you can't just keep planting in the same spot all the time. It's gardening 101. You look at our farmers turn over the soil and they recompost and they re-add nutrient, and they just make sure that the growing media is fresh and optimal after every season that the vegetables come out of. We've got to do the same for our own environment, our own containerised growing in urban environments. So yes, you can, but if you don't refresh your potting mix, if you don't deal with the biomass that's created when a vegetable puts its tremendous root systems down, then you're not going to get the best out of it. And some plants really suck the nutrient out of potting mix. And let's face it, what a plant is doing is it's taking that energy that's in the potting mix and they're converting it into biomass and something yummy that we like to eat. So it's just a big energy transfer. So when that vegetable's done, we've got to put more energy back into the soil. And that's through refreshing the compost, refreshing the potting mix with either nutrient, soluble fertiliser, or some of our green waste. We can actually put our green waste back into the soil to grow more nutritious food.
That's fantastic. So Marc, what's some advice you've got for our audience in creating their own edible garden?
My advice would be to think about what you're going to grow. Think about where you're going to grow it. Think about what you're going to grow it in, and then make a plan. We need to also think about how we're going to manage our vegetable garden, edibles, by getting the right sunlight, getting the right aspect, protecting them from bugs with either netting, protecting them from really harsh conditions like wind through netting and shade cloth, and thinking about crop rotation, thinking about what am I going to plant in the potting mix after my tomatoes come out, and maybe you put onions in there, and then you swap that over after you've reset your nutrition in your potting mix.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thanks so much for that great information, Marc. If you'd like to know more about Marc Noyce and how to create your own edible garden, please go to his webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And that's all for us today, so we'll say bye-bye for now and we'll see you next week. If you'd like to know more about our show, please like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel.